I will start post-processing by dropping the shadow and ambient occlusion passes to Photoshop. So I will select both of them, right click, go to rasterize layers, and I will now enable the shadow pass only. So as you can see, this is definitely not the result we are looking for, and if we just play around with the opacity, the effect isn't there. So I suggest changing the mix method to soft light or overlay, but usually soft light works better for me. And once we do that, you can instantly see much better result. So let's hide and unhide the layer to see what's actually happening. So you can definitely see the shadows get more visible in some areas. Let's say here around the counter as well. I just think we are getting too much of this white highlight in our scene. So we can either play around with the opacity slider, let's say reducing it to 40%, or you can also edit the layer using some of the tools like curves, for example. So let's do this with ambient occlusion. If I enable it and send the mix type to soft light, you can see the effect is still a little bit too dark. So with my ambient occlusion layer selected, I'm going to press Ctrl M and open the curve editor. Now by playing around, you can see I'm able to actually brighten up the scene. And the result we have at this point is actually pretty interesting, quite similar to what we were able to achieve with curves, levels, and exposure layers in the other video where I explained the Photoshop post-production, and here we are able to have quite similar results using just the renderer layers. So if we disable the ambient occlusion pass, you can see it has a much stronger impact to our scene than just the shadow pass. So I think we should definitely decrease the opacity of this ambient occlusion pass, let's say to 50% maybe. And let's play around with it. Yeah, I think 50, maybe 60% is enough for that. Let's now drag and drop Glossy Direct pass. And as you can see, again, this pass is much darker than those two we've been using. So if we set it up to soft light, well, this is something we don't want to have. For this kind of passes with a lot of black areas, let's use the screen mix method. So what it does, it actually cuts out all of the black values from the pass, and it only leaves the highlights for us. So now if we hide and unhide it, you can see, especially within those and those areas, we are getting those very nice highlights. Of course, they are too strong, so let's reduce this effect to, actually, I think 20-25% would be enough for that. We can also play around with curves. So let's see if it changes anything. Not that much if we only have 25% of opacity. So let's increase it and let's launch the curves again. Maybe if we increase the contrast, we'll get something better. Well, actually, let's just keep it with this S curve, increasing the contrast within these pass. Let's also reduce the opacity slightly. And let's now add the final glossy indirect pass. Let's drag and drop the pass to Photoshop. And similar as with the glossy direct, let's change the mix method to screen. So this pass, in contrast to the other passes, is a little bit too bright. So let's decrease its brightness using the curves again. We can actually go pretty harsh with the curves. So you can see the reflections are becoming now much more natural. Yeah, and if we disable the pass, we can clearly see this extra effect. So also let's reduce the opacity to maybe 40%. Now I can select all of the passes with my shift selected, press Ctrl G to group them, and let's hide and unhide everything. So you can definitely see the immediate effect all of the passes have on our rendering. Right now I would suggest fine-tuning the results slightly. So for example here I think the shadows are too dark. We could fix that either by enabling or disabling one of the passes, changing their opacity. I think the shadow actually has the biggest impact on those dark points. Or we could also add a mask, and using a very soft brush tool we could actually paint out those areas. So I'm going to press F to go full screen, change the opacity to 10%, and just slightly click around this area to paint out those harsh shadows. So I must say I'm pretty happy with the result. I wasn't using passes in my original approach to this rendering, but I must honestly say I'm really happy with how it looks like. As you can see, I'm just adding the curves right now to play around with the contrast a little bit more. Let's maybe go full screen with a black background so we have better preview on what's happening. So just by adding those simple curves and maybe a color balance layer, we would more or less have a finalized picture at this point. So yeah, should you use the render passes? That's the main question right now. Well, I would say that definitely depends on the way you want to approach renderings. You might also ask, why aren't we using the render passes directly in Blender? My answer to that is it's really much less user-friendly as it is in Photoshop. So personally, what I would suggest, if you want to stick to Blender, I would just do the tone mapping and color adjustments there. But if you want to work with the render passes, I strongly advise dropping them to Photoshop. But yeah, now when I'm enabling and disabling them, I must really say I'm really happy with the results. So I really hope this video was informative and that the knowledge you got from it will help you improving your renderings as well. Thank you guys for watching. This video is part of my interior visualization course in Blender, which you can watch for free on YouTube. All the necessary details and link to the full playlist can be found in the video description. If you want to support what I do and access all of the 3D files used in this course, plus Blender-ready interior setups and over 2,000 Blender-exclusive 3D models, just visit the Chocofor store and learn more about our subscription plans. Again, thanks for watching and I see you soon.